Good morning, everyone. Ira Feuerstein here with Insights with Ira. We are on episode 3. We've already done, this is our third one already. So how fantastic is it? And we're getting a lot of great feedback. So thank you so much for joining, whether you're on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, wherever I'm streaming this to live. You can chat in any of those platforms. Of course, you're muted. You can chat in any of those platforms that you want. And it will show up on our screen and we can answer questions as we go. So we encourage you to be part of the presentation, ask your questions, make your comments. We love hearing it. And if you're lucky, I might even put your comment up on the screen and you'll have your 30 seconds of glory. But today we're here to talk about business storytelling. And I'm going to get a little bit more into that when I make the introduction of our guest speaker today. But it's a crucial part of building any business. So let's quickly just go through who I am. So if you don't know who I am, my name is Ira Feuerstein. I help channel partners and business owners do much better stuff in their business. So if you're a channel partner or a technology consultant or a managed services provider, I can help you bring technology solutions to your customers. If you're a customer, maybe you own a business or you're running an IT department or you make technology decisions, I can be an unbiased person to help you make those decisions, all for no cost to you. I've built a $100 million business over the last 8 years, built it from the ground up. So I know all the pitfalls. I know every place that you can screw up because believe me, I've done it. I have done it in grand scale. But as you can see in my shirt, experiment, fail, learn, and repeat. So that's what you have to do. So I can help avoid a lot of those failures. And also, I want to talk today a little bit about what we're talking about, which is business storytelling. If you don't tell your story for your business, the marketplace will create one about you. And if you think about it, that could be good, but it can also be awful. And you don't want the awful side. You want to control that. So, I'm going to play a quick video of our guest speaker today before I bring him in from the green room. This is a quick 20-second video, but I hope you like it.
One is what? Unleash your story. Everybody, say everybody, has a story. And here's the challenge. If you don't share your story, the marketplace will create one about you.
So with that, I bring in Roberto Monaco. Roberto is a great friend of mine. He's actually my personal public speaking coach. I went through a 3-day seminar with him, and it changed my life forever. We'll get into that during this live stream. But Roberto, I'm going to just take a little bit of your glory away and tell these people a little bit about you, and then you can fill in the blanks and tell the real story because I'm probably making it up. But no, I'm not. But Roberto has been a public speaking coach for many, many years. He's actually done over 5,000 or more presentations around the world. And, he actually worked for the Anthony Robbins. And for, I think, 4 or 5 years was the guy who trained Anthony's full sales team and coached them. So he knows what he's doing. He knows how to build businesses. He knows how to teach people and take you from maybe not feeling comfortable with getting in front of people to being very comfortable. So with that, Roberto is my Brazilian brother from another mother. And I welcome him to our show. So Roberto.
I'm so excited to be here. So pumped when I got your message on LinkedIn. You're the LinkedIn king. So I got the message, I got the invitation. Of course, I'm super excited to connect with you here, to connect with everybody out there on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and have a fun session today and learn something new today.
I love it. So let's just start with the basics because, I think a lot of people in business don't really understand the power of being able to tell your story. So let's take it back and talk about how you got started in public speaking and storytelling training. I'd love to let them hear that story.
So I'm gonna tell the short version. So some of you are wondering, where's this guy from? The accent. So I'm from Brazil. I lived 25 years in Brazil, 26 in America. Now I'm American citizen. And when I in Brazil, I got a BA in finance. I worked in a bank for 10 years. When I came here, I want a new path, a new career. I had this energy inside of me. And the energy was growing up in Brazil. I always look at singers and soccer players. And I used to tell my mom, one day I want to be like them. And my mom, making fun of me, said, can't sing, can't play soccer. What do you mean? And I'm like, no, mom, I want to do something that I feel I was created, I was designed for. All right? I was talking about purpose, but I didn't know how to articulate that. Fast forward, I ended up getting a job with the Anthony Robbins companies. And my job, in the beginning, my first job with the company, I was doing 400 talks a year, going to companies and doing, quote unquote, a 45-minute workshop and selling Tony Robbins events. And that's when I learned the power of not speaking to inform, speak to transform, being able to walk in a room, build a rapport with people, introduce the pain, introduce the solution, get the people excited, and move them into action. So I learned that. And I remember one specific event where Tony Robbins was doing a training for us, for our team, and he said, I can lose everything tomorrow, my island, my plane, my business, and I'll build everything back up with the power of speaking. And I'm like, huh. And I just bought it. I just bought the belief. And when I left the company in 2008, I said, you know what, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to help people to tell the story, to communicate better. And I've been doing that since 2009 with our own company, Influenceology, and we have a lot of fun. We work with over 40 industries. And I realized that speaking is not something new. The first book on public speaking was written 300 years before Christ, BC. Aristotle actually wrote a book called Rhetoric. So this idea of being able to speak in front of a group and move people into action has been around for many years, over 2,000 years. I just feel that right now, like you're doing right now, is the best time ever, because not only you have the traditional forms of communication, a live presentation, you do a PowerPoint presentation, have a small group, 5, 50, 500, but also you can do quote unquote interviews, virtual presentations, webinars, live videos. So as a presenter myself, I absolutely love the opportunity we have right now.
Yeah, you know, a couple things I take away from that. Number one, I think everyone needs to understand that public speaking doesn't necessarily have to be in front of 2,000 people, like 3,000 people, like in that video I showed you were in front of. It could be in front of one decision maker. That's public speaking.
100%.
And you know, one of the things I learned a long time ago when I went through the training with you is you need to connect with people. You need to connect with them. So like, you know, whether I'm speaking in front of 1 or 2 people or 200 or 2,000, I always have it in my head that I need to connect with every person that's in the room so they feel like I'm having a one-on-one conversation with them.
100%.
And that's where storytelling comes in. And, you know, I'd love to talk about, you know, like, because I know a lot of people are thinking right now on this. They're probably thinking, well, storytelling, like, what does that mean? What should I be talking about? Now, you've already given examples of that in the 5 minutes we've been talking.
Yeah,
you've already done it. But let's talk a little bit about what types of stories should business leaders tell.
So before I want to answer this question here, I just want to give a little background how I came up with the realization that storytelling was important. So when I got a job with the Anthony Robbins companies, so I was selling this event called Unleash the Power Within. So eventually, I done this event 16 times, the same event. I was in the company for 6 years. After the third, fourth time, I knew the event, I knew the 4 days, and I used to sit down in the back of the room, literally breaking down Tony Robbins' talk, because he's just amazing, truly amazing communicator. Yeah. And I realized that, wow, one of the major characteristics that he tells a lot of stories. From that, I went to Zig Ziglar. I remember buying an audio specifically. It was a 90-minute audio from Zig on goal setting. I sat down and I'm like, my goal wasn't about goal setting. It was like, how many stories is going to tell? And it was 24. from there, I hire a storytelling coach back in the day. So storytelling is one of the most important communication tools as a leader. You gotta be able to tell, to master. And I want to give you why. Number one, and this is important because if you understand the why, then when we get into the what types of stories, you'll be like, okay, now I'm interested in learning. So number one, because stories create identification. And identification is a concept developed by a rhetorician, Burke, back in the 60s. And he talks about when you talk to one person or many, and you create this quote unquote identification, is that your audience of one, like you said, or 10, or 1,000, or 100, identify with the character of the story, the person, then two things happen. Number one, resistance goes down, right? And number two, because you have less resistance, you have more connection. And usually sales professionals, they go into quote unquote pitching mode, and people are like, here, why? Because why they're not connecting? Because they have resistance. If you have to, people can counter argue facts, people cannot counter argue experiences, or they're going to have a hard time counter argue stories. So that's why storytelling is so critical, because when you create identification, it reduces sales communication resistance, increases connection, and opens up, does not guarantee, but opens up an environment for you to communicate, for trust, so that you can influence your audience and create a win-win-win, right? So that's the idea. There's more into it. There's a lot of reasons why you should get into storytelling, but that's one of the major reasons. The second quick reason, and then I'm going to answer your question here. There is a study done. It's called Significant Objects, and you guys can search online. Type it up. Significant Objects Storytelling. So basically, researchers, they want to know if I get an object, right, a pen, and if I attach a story to it, is going to increase or decrease the value of the pen? What do you think?
Increase.
I mean, you sold technology. What do you think? 100 million. Sold a lot of technology. When you tell the story, increase or decrease the value? Right?
Increase. It makes it more interesting.
Yeah. So they did the research, and the numbers were crazy, right? So when you any product, any service, you can increase the value by telling stories. And the research is fascinating. For example, what they did, they bought these objects for $1.50. They put on eBay, and they hire professional copywriters to make up a story. Now, the story was fake, but people went to eBay, they look at the object, they look at the story, and they purchase. Now, when they purchase, they got a notification saying, hey, you're being part of a psychological study. The object's real, the story is not, right? But just to give an example, I have a plastic banana that I always carry with me in my talks. So the plastic banana, they bought for 25 cents, sold for $49. A big ROI. Because people get so excited, they get so, they stop judging. The kind of like the logical mind, rational minds goes to sleep, and they get emotional. And let me tell you a story. Let me tell you a story about that.
It becomes personal.
Become personal. So I've been teaching this concept for many years. 3.5 years ago, when I moved from San Diego, now I live in beautiful Charleston, South Carolina. My mom came to help us move. At the time, we had a 9-month-old, so my mom came. And when my mom came from Brazil, I got her in the airport, came home, and she goes, I have a present for you. I'm like, okay. And then she opened up her luggage and gave me this object that was all tied up a bunch of clothes. And I started unwrapping. And when I unwrap, there was a little, in your mind, Ira, you make judgments. You don't want to make judgments. You know what I'm talking about or no?
Yeah.
You're just like, but you kind of judge something. And when I look at the object, it was an old, beat up object. And instantly, without telling my mom, I'm like, does she want me to hang this around the house? It's kind of ugly. So my mom looked at me and said, do you know what it is, Roberto? And I'm like, no. And she goes, well, this is a guardian angel, little statue. And I'm like, okay. And she said, well, your grandmother gave this guardian angel to your grandmother so it could protect her. Your grandmother, I gave it to me so it could protect me. I gave you this little guardian angel to your sister Isabel so you could protect her. And now your sister is sending to your daughter this guardian angel. It has been protecting the woman in our families for over 100 years.
Now that piece of junk is not a piece of junk.
Yeah, and now I felt like the pain of like judging. Now that I went from ugly statue to like the most precious thing. So now if you go to my daughter's room, the little guardian angel is there, and that is the power of storytelling, right? So we got to build up the muscle. Not only so a recap here why, then we're going to get into stories. One, it creates identification with your audience, rapport, reduce resistance, increase connection, and research proves that increases the monetary money value of whatever you're selling.
Right.
That should be a good reason to become a storyteller.
That's excellent.
Right? 3 types of stories. By the way, depending on where you learn storytelling, some people recommend you got to learn 18 different types of stories. I like to make things simple so people learn. So I break it down to 3 stories. Number 1, your personal story. And your personal story, some people like to call the signature story. Every time you're communicating or representing a brand, a company, technology, why you're there speaking about technology, why you're there speaking about insurance, why you're there, if you're a realtor, if you're in telecom, why you're there, what is your connection to a topic? Everybody has a story. And you got to be able to tell the story. Like when Ira asked me, what's your background? Like, I told a little story about me working with Tony Robbins. So that story, your personal story, is your story that connects you, your product or service. Second type of story, which in the business environment, most people know already, is their client success story. You're going to have a client success story or a case study. Now, there's a lot of things that you can do to improve a case study or a client story. But I think that one of the things that I tell my clients, you got to have, and most companies don't have this, so that might be a one takeaway from our listeners, is for you to have a storytelling database.
Yeah.
Database maybe is and you know about database better than I do, but database could be a fancy word, but you should be able to, identify between 8 to 10 of the most common problems that you solve in industry. You solve between 8 to 10 problems, the most common ones, right? And for every problem that you solve, that you see every single day, that you know prospective clients see every single day, you want to have at least 1 story to match the problem. It's that simple. Now, eventually, Roberto, can you have more stories? Yes, you can have 10 stories for a problem. Why? Because when you have a new rep, you have a new situation, you can eventually gonna after you ask questions, after you listen, after you do, your investigative process, selling process, consultative process, at one point you're gonna be like, let me give an example. And then you're going to storytelling.
Yes.
So that's one of the things you can do is to have organized. Now here's the challenge, and I see these big companies too. One time I was working with this company, they had a lot of stories. On East Coast, they had banks. They work on the banks, right? But the same company on the West Coast, the reps like, we don't work with any banks, us. But they had all these stories from East Coast, but the salespeople, they're not sharing the stories, the case studies, information. So you got to put in a central place where everybody can benefit from the stories and case studies. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%.
So personal story, client story. And the third one that I developed this name called Swiss Army Knife Story. Now, Roberto, why you call Swiss Army Knife Stories? Is a story to illustrate everything else. Any other point, right? Act with urgency, embrace change, go an extra mile. Any point that you want to communicate, if it's not your personal story or a client story, you use a Swiss Army Knife story. So let me give an example. One point I was teaching a storytelling class for this group, and I needed a closing story for my talk. So then 2 questions I want to give the audience here are is this. Number one, every time we communicate, every time you write an email, every time you record a video, every time you're going to do a live, every time you're going to do a presentation, have a 5 minutes, ask just 2 questions. Number one, what is the point I'm trying to make? I know there's a lot of points, but what is the major one?
Yeah.
What is the major one? Number 2, what is an example of that? All right? Communication, storytelling is an inside-out game. Storytelling specifically, because when you learn the power of storytelling, what most people do, they go online and they type up stories about leadership, stories about vision, stories about change, which is okay. I think is the path of a great storyteller. But to be a great storyteller, you have to be a great story finder. What I mean by that is that how many stories have happened in your life? Thousands. Yes?
Yes. Yes.
So you gotta go internally and ask these questions. I have a presentation. What's the point I'm trying to make? Number 2, what is the example of that? And then you keep asking. So I was doing a class, so basically my class is my example here. I did a class of storytelling, and I'll say, I want a story to illustrate the point, right? So what's the point I'm trying to make? That storytelling is the tool that they need to be successful, right? That was the point. Then I go, okay, what is the example of that? What is the example of that? Then I'll be like, I got it. So I'm going to tell the story, pretending I'm closing my talk here. But I want to illustrate the power of going in and find the stories. When I came from San Diego to South Carolina, have you been to South Carolina, Ira?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. I live in Charleston. And in the summer here, it's hot, right? It's really hot. So I came here, kind of like Arizona, but humid. So I came here, and my first week, I got a house here, and then I called the cable company and said, hey, can you send a cable person here to install the cable? So the person came in, and he goes, where is your cable box? I'm like, well, it's in the office. So we go in the office. There's no cable box. He said, well, in South Carolina, usually they put the cable box in the garage. So I'm like, okay, let's go there. So in the garage, brand new house. I didn't know the place was. And it was hot, June, humid, in the garage, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm talking about nasty, right? Super hot. And then me and the cable guy looking for the modem. And then all of a sudden, I heard this. And I don't know if you've seen here in the South, but they have these wasps. They're like dinosaurs. I mean, they're gigantic. And you have this one. And then I push the guy, because I have a child in my house, right? So I close the garage door. I'm like, I handled that. So my wife had just bought this broom, those brooms that you clean outside, kind of wood, made with wood, super heavy. And here I am trying to kill a wasp, which is super fast, and with a broom, right? I'm so slow. Now, what happens when you attack a wasp? What happens?
Oh, they get pissed.
They got pissed. And that the wasp start like getting agitated, and you can see it's like, man, now it's a fight. And I'm hitting super slow, right? With this broom, heavy broom, and the wasp goes, zzz, and the cable guy's like this, with a little smile on the face, like. And then when I was sweating, and the wasp started attacking me, the guy, well, this, I'll handle this. And he pushed me to the side. And he stayed like the Superman pose right in the middle of the garage. And the wasp came to him like straight to his face. When I was right here, he pulled his cap. It goes like this. Bah! Hits the wasp. The wasp falls on the floor. He goes, step on it, kill the wasp. And he looked at me. He said, you got to have the right tools to get the job done. Right? And then I look at my audience to say, now you have a storytelling training. You already have the right tools to get the job done. Thank you very much. Right? So that's an example of like a Swiss Army knife story, which is not my personal story. Why I'm there speaking is not a client story. Is an example of finding story to illustrate my point.
Yeah, and I think the important takeaway from this to everybody is when you're in front of a group or a person or a group of people, you need to be able to connect with them through a story. But like, I'll give you an example. I'm working on a really huge deal right now. I mean, it's like $60,000 a month deal, $750,000 a year. And the way I hooked that group of people was I told a story about how we helped a different client, much smaller. I didn't say the much smaller part, but it was a similar. We helped this other client in a way that's going to help this company. And I brought it back to how we helped them and what it did for that client. And it was like having a fish on a hook.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had them. And this is so powerful. 2.5 years ago, before COVID hit, this was it was at the time, it felt really weird to me that this happened, but I got it. I was walking through an airport in Las Vegas, and this person walks up to me. Like I can tell that they're like looking at me like they know me or something. And I don't have a very good memory, but they didn't look familiar to me at all. Like not at all. And then they sort of shyly walked up and they said, "Are you Ira?" And I'm thinking to myself, yeah. Like in my head, I'm thinking like, is this person going to like stab me or something? Or like, this is really weird. And what they said to me was, "Hey, listen, I follow you on social media and I love how you always tell stories. Can I get a picture with you?" And
that is just awesome. That is awesome.
And that cemented it for me of how powerful it is that somebody you don't even know can be impacted by that. So you guys have to have these 3 types of stories, right? You have to have them, and you have to be able to tie them and break down those barriers so people don't feel like you're talking at them. You feel like you're talking with them. They're part of it. They're like in your inner circle. That's my mentality always when I'm talking.
I love that. I love it.
Now,
because going to the point, speaking to this point right now of like you are with them, storytelling. If you think about it, like, and I read this in a book. I like to usually give the reference, but I forgot which book I read it on storytelling. But the author was talking about the length of my arm and the length of my hand. The length of my hand is how long we human beings have been writing, right? And the length of my arm is how long we have oral communication, right? Think in terms of like cavemen.
Yeah.
Cavemen got together, and how they communicate, right, is before being able to write. So that's why it's easier for people to come home from work and just like turn on TV and like, right? I'm not talking about the merits of TV, but it's easy. People then go and read books, right, or whatever. So I think that's super important. And one more takeaway here too is that a lot of people I noticed in my career, I've been doing this professional training 20 years. This is my 20th year speaking and training, which is awesome. Is that a lot of people, Arab, if you go like a Saturday and Sunday, they're on a party, they can tell stories, their buddies all day long. But then you get the same person and you put into quote unquote a business deal, a business speech, a business presentation. They go into PowerPoint mode, bullet point mode. I'm like, yeah. Can we have just the same person here? That's it. That was my point.
I can't stand PowerPoint presentations. Yeah. I think they're a crutch. A lot of times I'll go into a prezo with the customer and, we've got like a 15 slide deck. And this is what I literally do. I say, hey, listen, there are 15 slides here. I'm going to boil this down to 1 slide, and then we're just going to talk. And
I just love that.
I'm like, is that okay with you? Like, do you hate PowerPoint as much as I hate PowerPoint? And everyone says yes.
I just love it.
Everyone says yes. But Robert Bowling, a good friend of mine from Kentucky, just said, we need to have the discipline of writing a white paper about every sale to develop our own storytelling ability.
Wow, I love that.
That's how you create a database. Robert.
I love that, Robert. By the way, Robert, love your name.
Yeah, you're dead on. So I know we're getting towards the bottom of the half hour, but I want to finish up with maybe 2 questions. So besides storytelling, what are some of the other tips that you can give these folks to improve like how they present in business?
Yep. So one of the things, and there's a lot of research that proves that the word confidence is you can get a confident presenter with the wrong information and someone with less confident with the right information, the confident presenter is going to do better, which is crazy. Right? That's not mine, this is research.
Yeah.
So the idea is that obviously you don't want to be presenting the wrong information, right? You want to present, but being able to deliver a message with confidence, regardless if in front of a camera, in front of a group, then is really important. And so how do we improve your confidence? There's a lot of different techniques out there. One of the things that I really truly believe, a very specific tip every time I communicate, is always, in my mindset, is always about moving the audience from point A to point B. Point A where they are, point B better. That's it. And every story that I tell, every question that I ask, every research that I share has nothing to do with me, has everything to do with the audience from point A to point B. And a lot of people put their pressure. Obviously, if you're communicating, if you're leading, you are on a spotlight. And quote unquote, people are judging you. They are. But by your mindset, your focus should be, how can I serve people at the highest level? And everything is about moving audience from point A, where they are, to point B. So that's one thing that definitely preparation is another important point. People don't like to prepare. I read the book one time. I don't recommend the book, by the way, but I'm not going to mention the title of the book, was acting for public speakers. And I got one thing. And the one thing that I got in the book was they're talking about Al Pacino. And according to the book, his favorite part of acting was during the rehearsal process. Why?
Yeah.
Because during the rehearsal process, he could experiment. He could be creative. He could use imagination. Then by the time he actually record the movie, he was like, already, there's no place for me to be innovative here. And then I used to went from, I don't like rehearsing, to like, that makes so much sense. So now, even for our, I was rehearsing. I had my points, my story, and I told these stories before. Right? But I'm like, if he asked me this question, I have the answer. If he asked me this question, I have the answer. So I was preparing for something, for an interview that I feel can go anywhere. Right? So to have that preparation is key. So
yeah, one thing I would say out of that too to everyone is, you've got. And this is harder said than done. But if you're going to be speaking in front of somebody, you've got to have that level of confidence in yourself. Mm-hmm. I know that's hard sometimes for people, but you have to. I'm going to give you an example. I went to an industry event, and I felt so bad for this poor guy who got up on stage. This is the situation they put him in. Room of 300-400 industry professionals. 10 minutes before this company is supposed to go present, they go to this brand new employee who's been working there 2 weeks and said, you need to go up and present the information. They set him up for disaster. When he got up on that stage, my heart was sinking for him, because you could feel the air just coming out of the room.
Oh.
You could feel him. He was in a place he should not have been. So you just need to be thinking about that. Like, before you put people in front of other people, make sure they understand the product. Make sure they understand what they're talking about. Make sure they understand their stories. Don't do what they did to this poor guy. And then, and then I was thinking, oh my gosh, I'm up next after this guy. So now I have to deal with this deflated room, because everyone was talking and they weren't paying attention to the guy. So I said, okay, well, I'm going to have to come in and just demolish this thing. I didn't really know what to do. So I just got up on stage and I pulled a Roberto. I came at him like 1,000,000 miles an hour, and you can just feel it. The room came back to life. But you got to have that confidence in yourself. You got to have that confidence in the people. So you got to set them up for success.
100%.
Don't set them up for failure.
100%. And when it comes to, in my career, and I know you coach and train and develop a lot of leaders too. We have a lot of brilliant people, brilliant, smart, brilliant. They're very confident in their technique and their skills, but then when it comes to communication, they're just not. And you don't have to be the person who lives with a lack of confidence to communicate.
Yeah.
Everybody their own story. I think communication and speaking to groups, nobody's born a great communicator. Everybody goes through their trials and errors, and they develop. Is a skill you can develop easily.
You have to learn it like anything else. When we came to your weekend event, I brought 2 other guys with me.
Yeah.
And out of the 3, I was definitely ahead of them a little bit at the beginning before we came, but they were not good at all with public speaking. As a matter of fact, they were like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know if I want to do this. It scares me." I'm like, "Listen, you will be a better person. I promise you. It won't be, it won't be bad. It'll be all good." And it's funny. This was 8 years ago, I think I took this with you. One of those guys hit me up like a week ago, and I told him I was interviewing you on my show, and he's like, "Oh, you got to tell him thank you so much because I completely changed. I'm doing things I would have never imagined because of the stuff I learned in that weekend."
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
And to show the kind of guy Roberto is, after I went through that training, I told him, "Guess what? I'm speaking at an event with like 1,000 people." He's like, "Oh my God, no kidding." He's like, "Where is it at?" I'm like, "It's in Scottsdale." This guy ended up showing up in Scottsdale.
Yeah, and that was fun. And I'm talking about you speaking in front of like 1,000 people, and there was like big name speakers, and you did such a good job. I was so proud of you.
But he showed up. He showed up there to see me. So I'm like, "Oh my gosh, now I got to really pull it out." But anyway, Roberto, so we got to finish up here, but tell us and everyone on how, if they want to get more information, where can they find you?
Just go to influenceology.com, influenceology.com. There's a couple free ebooks there. You can download it, learn more about what I do. And I'm on social media too, LinkedIn here, Roberto Monaco. We have Influenceology page on LinkedIn too. So just go to influenceology.com or send a message on LinkedIn. I am on LinkedIn every day.
Great. And also, guys, you can always hit me up and I can get you to him if you want more information. So Roberto, thanks for joining. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
We'll see you soon, hopefully. Thanks. So everyone, let's talk about some upcoming events. So on March 2nd, we have Barry Moltz coming on. Barry is a small business expert. He's written 4 books. And his most recent one, I think, is calling Helping Businesses Get Unstuck. He's fantastic. He's out of Chicago. You'll love the guy. March 16th, we have Joel Werdy. So Joel is the Chief Marketing Officer and a brand builder. He built, I think it was like $100 million a food company, and they ended up selling that off, and now he's doing it again with a brand called Catalina Crunch, which I've been seeing their ads all over TV and internet and stuff like that. So he's going to be talking about how to build a winning brand for your business. So you don't want to miss that, March 16th also. And then the last thing I'll leave you with here is my call to action. And my call to action is this: if you're a potential partner and you want to bring great technology to your customers, I can help you do that. But more importantly, I can help coach you on how to scale your business. I already built a $100 million business from zero, so I know how to do it, and I can help you do that. If you're a potential customer and you're looking to make technology decisions, whether it's new bandwidth for your office or new VoIP system, or you need new credit card processing or search engine marketing or a new website built, or I can go on and on, contact center, any of those types of technology procurement decisions, hit me up before you call anybody, because when you call directly to a supplier, like Comcast or Quest or Cox or whoever it is, AT&T, Verizon, your best interest is not what they're thinking about. Sorry to tell you that, but they're just not. They're looking what's in their best interest. So I could become an unbiased person to help you make those decisions, to bring the right solutions to you and help you make a good, solid decision, get you a great deal, And by the way, I don't cost anything, which is the best part. So with that, I'm going to leave you all go. Don't forget, March 2nd, be here for Barry Maltz. We'll be streaming on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. Hey, maybe we'll even do Twitter next time. And thanks so much for joining. Have a great day. Hopefully you enjoyed this, and we'll talk soon. Thanks, and we'll see you later.